So whoever the brilliant one was that told me to stay up and do this live late after a 6-5 loss in overtime, or I should say in a shootout to the Anaheim Ducks, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for making me stay up so late. But I got to tell you this. It was an interesting game, a lot of action. The Canadiens showed a lot of character, but still a lot of holes in their game. So instead of just talking about it now, let's talk some live puck. So let's get the most painful part of this game out of the way, starting right away with your game highlights. And now, leave it to the Montreal Canadiens to allow their opponent to score early and, as it turns out, often enough. As 39 seconds in, Cutter Gauthier scores his 32nd of the year on Sam Montembeault, who started in goal for Montreal. Not much Monty could do on that shot, and that made it 1-0. And so everybody is going, oh no, here we go again. It's San Jose all over again. Well, you're not wrong, but there's a difference. A minute, well, not even a minute later, let's say 20 seconds later, just about, Nick Suzuki scores his 20th of the season. Oops, wrong goal. Hang on, never mind that. Nick Suzuki scores his 20th of the season to make it, oops, live show, screwed up. Makes it 1-1. Then it's Lane Hutson's turn. 3:33 into the first. Hopefully this is the right replay. And I think it is. There you go. Hudson does what nobody expects, and he shoots and fires short side and scores on Dostal to make it 2-1 for Montreal. They've got their first lead of the hockey game. Now, I don't know whether or not that knuckled or not. It didn't look like it was a very hard shot, but it looked like it dipped a little bit on the way in, so maybe it hit the defenseman. I don't know. Either way, Montreal had a lead. That lasted all of 8 minutes when noted goal scorer Radko Gudas, the Beard, as I like to call him, scores his second of the season on a shot that should have never gone in. The save's made by Montembeault. The puck comes back to the point, fluttered in, right by his glove, whiffed on it. Watch this. You want to talk about a goaltending goof? He completely whiffs on the shot. It's 2-2. Then, Jackson Lacombe's turn, which was the replay that you were being shown when Nick Suzuki scored. That's this one. Lacombe scores to make it 3-2 Anaheim and gives them the lead. He gets a return pass right here. Clap, scores. Another one that Monty should have had. Watch this. He doesn't push off right. Okay? He tries to push and goes nowhere. Leaves the whole glove side of the net wide open. So that makes it, what is it? 3-2 Anaheim. Then, starting in the third period, Leo Carlsson scores. He scores, where are we here? Just 35 seconds in again. So the second goal the Canadiens have allowed early in a period, there it is. Again, on this one, Monty, not much he can do. A 2-on-1, Kreider with a sweet pass across. Boom, into the net. And that made it 4-2. Now we're all saying, screw it, we're done. Nope, Canadiens will not allow that. Starting with the comeback is Cole Caulfield. He scores his 36th of the season, his first of two at 8:41 of the third period on what looked like a half-speed clapper. Didn't really look like he put too much on that shot, but it got in underneath Dostal to make it 5-3. Sorry, 4-3. Then it was noted goal scorer Alex Carrier, scoring his 7th of the season. Always seems to score clutch goals to tie the hockey game up at 4. Puck comes back, he puts the puck down and fires it home, past Dostal, evening it up at 4. Here it is again. Quick shot, another knuckle puck in the net. We're tied up at 4. Then Cole Caulfield deflects an excuse me shot from Noah Dobson. Right off the draw here. It comes back to the point. Hudson to Dobson, he shoots. And it looked more like Caulfield was trying to avoid the puck than actually deflect it. And it hit his stick and went in just inside the post. That made it 5-4 Montreal. That came at 13:04 of the third period. Well, with 42 seconds left, guess what? Jacob Trouba takes a shot from the blue line, and Chris Kreider deflects it home. Who else but noted Hab thorn into my ass to tie the game up at 5. Here it is again. Perfect position. Puts it by Montembeault. Game goes into a shootout. The shootout goes 7 rounds. And Alex Gahorn, native of Point Claire, wins it for the Anaheim Ducks. They come away with a 6-5 win. So now, let's take a look at the bad side of the things when we take a look at my game report. And while the shot total was up high for the, where are we here? Shot total was 33-28 in favor of the Anaheim Ducks. The majority of the shots that the Canadiens got late in the game came in overtime. So, 5 goals on 28 shots for Dostal, 5 goals on 33 shots for Montembeault. The problem, though, isn't the fact that Montembeault stopped, 28 of 33. I didn't have a problem with that number. I had a problem with the fact that he allowed the 5 goals, and 3 of them should have never gone in. And again, it comes down to concentration for me. I know that on one of the shots, it looked like Philip Deneau deflected the puck past him. I get it. But it comes back to what I keep telling you about Sam Montembeault and what he continues to do that affects his game. And that is he sits back in his crease. He's never out challenging. When he is out challenging, he is effective and he makes good stops. But when he decides to keep his skates inside the crease and doesn't come out to the top of it to challenge a little bit, like Dobesh does, he isn't nearly as effective. And now I don't understand why he won't come out to the top of the crease on a consistent basis. I don't get it. The other part I don't get to is like on the Kreider goal at the end. And I'm not blaming him on the Kreider goal. But what I'd like to see from him is what goalies are taught is instead of being far back in your net and waiting in behind the player to deflect it, you need to be right up against him so that his stick is right there in front of you. There's nowhere for the puck to go. Instead, he's back a couple of feet, and it gives the space for that deflection to go in. I'd like to see him be more aggressive. Don't push off of Kreider. Don't drop in your butterfly. Stand up straight, drop right at the edge of your crease, and let the puck hit you. It's as simple as that. But all that being said, Monty had a relatively decent game outside of those goals. But he needs to be better if the Canadiens are going to be any type of contenders. I've got a little bit more to talk about with Montembeault a little bit later in the show when I bring it to the chat. But here's the thing that really bugs me about the Canadiens in this game especially. Anaheim, all game long, was standing up at the blue line. The Canadiens, Cole Caulfield was guilty of this, as were a lot of the other Canadiens, whether it's Suzuki, Doc, you name it. Instead of getting the puck to the blue line and dumping it in because of the fact that there were so many people at the blue line, they continued to try nonstop to try to deke everybody. And I'm sorry. For all intents and purposes, I taught this to a bunch of 13 and 14-year-olds back in the day, where if you're skating up the ice and there's more than one person in front of you, you should dump the puck into the corner and try to chase it down as opposed to trying to keep possession of it. Because what happens is when you're outnumbered, possession is taken away and the puck goes the other way. It happened to Caulfield and it resulted in a goal. So those things are the things that the Canadiens need to watch. There is nothing more damaging to a hockey club than a giveaway at the offensive blue line because everybody's caught going in the wrong direction. Everybody's moving forward, coming in to try to come in and attack the zone, and instead what happens is the puck gets turned over and it goes back the other way, and you have odd man rushes. And a team like Anaheim loves to attack off the rush. They've got all kinds of talent, and they did just that. And for a team that is normally very well prepared in the Montreal Canadiens, this particular lack of sight of what was going on the ice, ability to read and react to what you're seeing, was a little concerning to me. This isn't a coaching thing, right? I keep coming back to that. The coaches recognize this. They go into the room. The players recognize this on the bench when they've got the iPad out and they're looking at what happened. They'll see it. They'll understand, okay, they're standing up at the blue line. We've got to try something different. Instead of dumping it in, then they try to go flat across the blue line after they cross to allow their players to come in and try to attack the zone with them and create numbers. That doesn't work either, because when you've got an odd man number in favor of the defense, the minute you skate flat, they just follow you, turn the puck over the other way, and again, you're going back in the opposite direction. The Canadiens need to learn to play both ways. I understand that Marty St. Louis wants them to be a possession team. But like I said, I taught this to 13 and 14-year-olds. And the one thing that you tell them is, if you've got nowhere to go, and if you don't want to dump the puck in, regroup. Turn back, bring it back into the neutral zone, and bring it all back again in a group of 5. It's a simple premise. Instead of trying to push the puck up the ice north-south all the bloody time, think about turning it back and resetting. There's nothing wrong with it. You still have possession of the puck. The other team is still chasing you. And while you have possession of the puck, you're on offense. Very simple. And when you're on offense, the other team cannot score. So keep possession of the puck. Don't dump it in if you don't want to. But if you see you're being outnumbered at the offensive blue line, let's reverse it, reset, and try it again. You'll see the other team won't be able to respond, because they will not have enough time to be able to reset their defensive structure. It's relatively simple. But Canadiens didn't do it, and it bit them in the ass, I think, 3 times in this hockey game. Twice early on in the period. It boggles the mind. Now, defensively, again, the Canadiens also have the same problem, boxing out in front of the net. You saw it on the Kreider goal. You got to be able to move that guy. I know it's Chris Kreider. I know the guy's got 100 goals from in front of the net on deflections. I get it, right? But there's got to be a way to be able to box the guy out in front. Chris Kreider does not weigh 300 pounds. He is not the biggest, most physical specimen. He's lanky. So you can get him off balance because he's tall. It's easy enough to put your stick under his ass and move him just by lifting a little bit and getting him on his tippy toes, or giving him a couple of shots inside the pants. They're all things that are legal because you're not making it obvious. If you skate up to a guy and you put your stick into his back and then just thrust downwards, you're not going to get a penalty because there's no motion to cross-check. You're literally pushing the guy and just giving him a quick shot. The referees don't even see it. And it is what it is, right? How you doing, Roy? Yes, we'll talk about that afterwards. Because I got some news on the G contest, as you call it. But in and of itself, there's no other way to put this when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens. They did everything they needed to do to win, except follow their game plan. They had control of the game at a certain point, right? When they were up 2-1, they needed to get control of the game. They never did it. They allowed the Anaheim Ducks to manifest whatever they wanted. The thing about the Anaheim Ducks is very simple about their offense is they go east-west all the time. They don't go north-south as often as you might think. You take a look at the Cutter Gauthier goal, or if you take a look at the Jackson Lacombe goal, both of them were almost identical, east-west, right? Lacombe was from the point, Gauthier was in tight, right off the top of the game, right? The same holds true for the Leo Carlson goal. Again, east-west. That's how they get success offensively, because of the fact that they're so good at passing the puck amongst themselves and creating odd man opportunities. They did it beautifully in this hockey game, and the Canadiens kept on getting caught. Why? Because, again, instead of going and being on the right side of the puck, they decided to be just, a little bit too lackadaisical defensively. It's a problem for Montreal these days. And while before the Olympic break, or even afterwards, let's just say before the West Coast trip started, their defensive structure was solid. Man-to-man was good. Getting the puck out of their zone was good. The whole kit and caboodle. But now on this Western trip, again, West Coast teams are a different style of game. They come out, they're physical, they can move the puck, but they are not afraid to engage, which is something that the Montreal Canadiens, because of a little bit of their lack of size, cannot do. So when you play outside the dots like Montreal did tonight, you do not have success, right? Yes, they scored 5 goals. It wasn't the end of the world. Don't get me wrong. I am not saying that the Canadiens played an absolutely horrific game offensively. But defensively, when you start to play outside the dots and you give the middle of the ice up to your opponent, you're going to lose. There's a defense or a defensive structure, as it were, that's called the hourglass, right? Basically, teams start with the puck and get it out of their zone along the half wall. Then through the neutral zone, they come in between the dots and they start to skate and take the middle of the ice. And then the other team is supposed to push you to the outside, forming that hourglass. Good offenses don't do that. Instead, they funnel. They start wide in their own zone and they funnel to the middle. Why? Because the game is won between the dots. I will say that until I'm blue in the face. So there's no reasoning behind why the Montreal Canadiens just don't do that against Western teams. There's no rhyme or reason. I wish I knew. So now that we take a look at that game report, and there's not much to really complain about in this hockey game other than the fact that the Canadiens were poor defensively on those turnovers, and Sam Montembeault allowed a couple of goofball goals in this hockey game. We can move on to the other news of the day, which was the trade deadline. And I know everybody talked about everything. And, you know, Kent Hughes came out and he had his press conference and he said, oh, well, you know, we had a deal on the table and we focused on that deal and the deal didn't happen, so we didn't make any deals. And anybody in the media that believes that bullshit, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn I want to sell you. Because that is not how Kent Hughes works. That is Kent Hughes' way of telling you guys, you know what, you're not smart enough to figure out what I'm doing, be quiet. And let me try to do my job without too much distraction from you guys. And remember, it started back with François Gagnon turning around and saying that the Canadiens were looking to trade Patrick Laine. The Canadiens would try to look to trade Patrick Laine if there was a deal that was needed to be made and they needed to liberate his money. It's not that we're actively trying to get rid of him. Let's get that straight here. Okay? The story about how his agent was talking to other teams, the same thing that Kent Hughes repeated, it's not protocol. It's not etiquette. It is called tampering. You cannot have an agent talking to another GM when your player is under contract with another team, even if you give him permission. There is no GM in the world that's going to make a deal with an agent so the agent can go back and try to make that deal with the GM. If a team is so desperate to get rid of a player and they send the agent out to get rid of him, that doesn't smell of desperation to me. That smells of let me lay out something for everybody to follow and let them try to figure out what I'm talking about. Defer and deflect. It's a strategy that GMs use, and that's exactly what Kent Hughes did to perfection. And then when you talk about the deal today that did not happen, that was on the table and did not happen, a lot of you are going to sit there and say, oh, yeah, it had to be something with like Robert Thomas or whatever. Well, let me talk to you about something, okay? If you listen to Kent Hughes during his press conference, he said that, and I paraphrase here, he said that they were going to revisit the trade in the summer. And now, for obvious reasons, the reason why they didn't want to discuss it is because the player's under contract. And sorry that I'm coughing. It's just that I did a play-by-play in a game tonight, so my voice is a little hoarse. More hoarse than normal, but I digress anyway. But here's the thing. The player that he was talking about happens to be Sam Montembeault. While Dave Pagnotta talked about this earlier in the day and said that Montembeault was on the table. Yeah, he was on the table, and there were others that were being asked for in that deal. And the deal was with the St. Louis Blues, but it wasn't for Robert Thomas. It was for Binnington and Jordan Kyrou. And now, while you're going to sit there and say, what? Listen, until everybody else gets the news and it comes out eventually, because they're going to find out in the summer, I just might as well tell you. The whole thing is that they wanted Kyrou. They wanted Kyrou since the beginning of the year, and they also wanted Binnington. And I heard that 3 months ago. And the deal was to include Montembeault, but what the Blues were asking for in exchange for Jordan Kyrou was a bit much. They wanted Gouli, They wanted Hage. They wanted a lot of different pieces that, they wanted a first-round pick along with that. And to me, that just screams that St. Louis didn't want to make the deal. And they wanted to see if the Canadiens were desperate enough to do it. And you know how King Hughes is. If the deal doesn't work, he doesn't do it. And so it didn't work and he didn't do it. But watch for the Canadiens to try to make a deal, getting rid of Sam Montembeault or sending Sam Montembeault somewhere else is a better way to put it, in the summer. Because their plan, given the progress of Jacob Fowler, is to bring him up next year and have the duo of goaltenders be Dobish and Fowler, which makes complete sense. But let's get to the whole fact that the Canadiens didn't make a deal today. Why? Ask yourself that question. Is there a reason why the Canadiens didn't make a deal? You're damn right. This was a seller's market, not a buyer's market. And so because of that, sellers were asking for more than what their players were worth. Why? Because the deals were being made. And so because that's the way the market is, it's not the time to start trying to trade for assets that are going to help you down the road, like, let's say, a Robert Thomas would or otherwise. So if that's the case, you stay the course and you continue to do what you've been doing for the last few years. That does not mean that come next season, the Canadiens aren't going to make a move. And here's the thing. When you take a look at the Habs, right, they did make moves this season. During the preseason, they went out and got Zach Baldzirk in exchange for Logan Mailloux. They went out and they got Noah Dobson at the draft. They drafted their picks. They got Dobson. All's good in the world. They signed Dobson long term. We're good. They got Philip Deneau midseason because they needed help at center. They made deals that made sense for the team at the time to be able to augment what they have and to be more competitive, which they have been. But to make a deal at the deadline just for the sake of making a deal sometimes, it just doesn't make any sense. Another thing that doesn't make any sense, and this is away from the Habs for a second, who the hell thought that John Carlson was going to get traded today to the Anaheim Ducks? I don't think anybody saw that coming. It was out of left field. Even Carlson, who was asleep at the time when he got traded, kind of freaked out. Didn't know that it was happening to him. And the reaction of Alex Ovechkin to the trade, well, that just tells you how little they knew about what was going on with the John Carlson situation. But that being said, you take a look, Nazem Kadri, gone from Calgary, he's gone over to Colorado. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, why didn't the Canadiens get Kadri? Well, because Kadri's older and he's still got 3 years left on his contract. So you're not going to make that deal. I don't care who you are. It's just a crazy, crazy time of year when it comes to the trade deadline. And the worst part is that so many Habs fans get sucked in by all the insiders. I don't care who it is, whether it's Dreger, LeBrun, Chris Johnston, Frank Saravelli. The list goes on and on of people that think they know what's going on, right? You may know with certain teams, but with others, not so much. And here's the really fun part. There were two tweets put out, one by Darren Dreger, one by LeBrun, or Spanky, as I like to call him. Dreger's tweet was, oh, it's a buyer's market, and so you're going to see a lot of deals go on. And in the meantime, you had Spanky turn around and put out a tweet that it's a seller's market. And it was a seller's market. LeBrun had it right. But just to say, if they don't know amongst themselves what the market is, how the hell are they going to know who's getting traded where? And there's not a single trade that they talked about that they really got right. Right? Last minute, yes, they're on the phone. Oh, what? You see them on Trade Center. Oh, what? Blah, blah. And they figure out at the last minute what's going on. Right? The trade deadline was so bad. They only had, 19 trades by 3 o'clock or whatever it was. There were a few more that trickled in after the fact. But when McCann got traded from Toronto, they made a big deal out of it. Who cares? It's like it's the biggest deal in the world. There's a team that needs to make changes, right? Duh, which one are you talking? What are you talking about when you say what the hell was that anyway? The Carlson deal? Yeah, I know. There's probably a bunch of other teams that would have loved to know that Carlson was available so that they could make a pitch, but I don't know how that deal happened. I don't know why it happened, but it's just weird. It was a bizarre trade deadline to say the least. And I did these deadlines before live. I did a few shows with Jimmy Murphy back in the day when he was still working with Top Shelf Radio and Montreal Hockey Talk and whatever it was. And so when you take a look at it, we'd sit down, and when the Canadiens traded for Thomas Vanek, he and I sat down and looking and going, what the hell? Where did that come from? Nobody was expecting it. Vanek's name wasn't even on the board. And all of a sudden, it comes across from one of my sources. I'm like, the Canadiens just traded for Thomas Vanek. And on the air, Jimmy looks at me and goes, no way. And it just happened. It was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. And now you got this with John Carlson. It's just bizarre. And I don't know what it is about general managers these days, because when you take a look around the league, right? Take a look at Toronto as an example. And I know you don't like talking about the Leafs. Nobody gives a rat's ass. But just to give you an example, the Toronto Maple Leafs are a dumpster fire, okay? Whether they're doing it on purpose to get Gavin McKenna, or whether it's another reason altogether. First of all, they shouldn't even be in the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes because they've got so much talent on that team. But the problem with the Leafs is they've got no character. So you've got a coach who has way too much character in Craig Berube. You've got Brad Treliving, who looks like a doppelganger for that Howard from the show Person of Interest. Look it up. You'll see what I mean. And he has no clue what he's doing. This will be the second NHL team that Brad Treliving is going to destroy, because the first one, the Calgary Flames, are still licking their wounds from when he was there. How he got the Toronto job is beyond me. So now he's there doing the exact same thing, which is nothing. He's got assets that he doesn't want to get rid of. He's benching guys thinking that he's going to be able to trade them, but then he can't trade them because he's unwilling to. It's a complete mess in Toronto. And when you look at other teams, like the New York Rangers, who need to get help because the Rangers are just going down the toilet, right? You just ask yourself, where are these GMs coming from? Why do these guys still have jobs? And then you've got the creme de la creme of the league. When you take a look at Ken Holland, or you take a look at Steve Yzerman, or Mike Greer in San Jose, or you take a look at Ken Hughes in Montreal. There's such a disparity in the way GMs think, it's embarrassing. Even Barry Trotz, who's retiring from hockey after this season, I mean, he can't correct the ship in Nashville, so he's stepping aside to get a younger, maybe newer voice in there to try to figure out what to do with that team. It's just really bizarre. Now, Duo, we talked about the game. What the hell was that? It's another one of those things that I talk about the West Coast. And people turn around and tell me that this West Coast bias doesn't exist. That they got in early, they flew in early, and they had a full day, they got into practice. Guys, for as much as you think it's bullshit, it's not. Okay? When teams from the East go to the West Coast, it's always difficult. It's a 3-hour time difference. You might think it's nothing. For an athlete, it's everything. It's sleep. It's all kinds of stuff. It's just bizarre. And so it affects players in so many different ways. You're cramped in a plane for 3 hours. You get up. You go to your hotel. You go to sleep. You go to practice the next day. Your legs are still stiff. You get to the hockey game. You can't skate. And now we'll see whether or not that actually translates to the game tomorrow versus the Kings. But hey, probably not. Apache Nation, hey, Coach K, I can't believe they put Doc in the third spot instead of Demidov in the shootout. Cost us a point. Maybe the coaching is part of the issue. You know what? Doc's been pretty good. 4 of 6 in the shootout. He's normally pretty good on the shootout. I'm not surprised they put him there. And I think they held on to Demidov a little bit later just because of Doc's prowess, right? I think it's the first time that Doc actually got a chance since coming back from injury to get into the shootout. So I'm not surprised that they did it. And for lack of a better option, Demidov was 0 for life until he scored in the shootout. So I mean, there's a reason behind that. It's more numbers than it is coaching, so I wouldn't blame it on that. Montreal MUFC. Can someone send Monty on waivers to then drop in Laval? Can someone fire Robida for being an awful D-man coach? My biggest gripes tonight are on that front. And you know what, bud? You're not wrong. I mean, I've been talking about Robida for a while now. And Monty, unfortunately, if they put him on waivers, somebody's going to snatch him up, right? And now we already didn't get anything done at the trade deadline to get rid of Monty, but he still got value. So the Canadiens don't want to give him up for nothing. He's still got a year under his contract. They're going to try to trade him in the summer, most likely at the draft, because nothing happened now. But we'll see what happens. But he has to go. There's no two ways about it. Monty BS is not good. This Monty BS is not good. I don't know why I had trouble reading this. Probably because it's late. But, you know, when you talk about Monty, it's just, there's a difference between Monty from when he came over from Florida to Monty now. And the reason that difference is there is because the Monty that came over from Florida didn't have anything to lose but everything to gain. And he slowly worked his way up the ladder in Montreal. But then he got to the top. And then it messed him up. And whether it's, I forget what that clinic's called in Trois-Rivières, the neurological clinic that he worked with over the summer, or whether it's just, you know, the fact that he got married over the summer, whatever the case is. There's something off about Sam Montembeault this year that I can't quite put my finger on. There's a lack of focus that just doesn't equate, and that's the reason why he's playing so poorly. I mean, he whiffed on 2 goals today. Whiffed, not missed, whiffed. A glove save, he missed it. Okay? There's no excuse for it, but whatever. People are going to say, oh, well, he was screened, all this. Goalies are screened, and tips happen every game. Goalies stopped them because they're in good position. Monty was not, on those 2 especially. There are a few of them that there was nothing he was able to do, but it is what it is. Just for everyone's attention, a player can be claimed off waivers after the trade deadline, but cannot play in the NHL for the rest of the season. That's not true. He can be claimed off waivers, but he can't be playoff eligible. Yeah, it's playoff eligible after the waiver claim, and even the trade deadline. You can still trade players after the deadline, but they cannot take part in the playoffs if you do, just for the record. So that's what that difference is. But they can play in the regular season in the Montreal MUFC. I'm pretty sure of that one, if you claim them off waivers. But getting back to Montembeault's game, yeah, I'm tired of talking about it, to be honest. Until I see a marked difference in his game. And there's subtle things that I see that show that he's doing the work. Don't get me wrong here. I don't think he's a complete lost case. But as far as his game is dipped, getting back to where he was goaltending-wise is going to be difficult. And the thing about Monty is I've never been a fan. I mean, I know I've been hard on him at times. But I've never been a real fan of his goaltending because I always see gaps in his game that always bothered me, right? Like when he goes and he slides laterally from post to post, and I see his knees come up off the ground so that he can slide across more easily because his butterfly is not right. It's just little things like that that I see that normal fans like you guys out there and whatever that haven't been part of the game as long as I have, I see minute details like that, and people think I'm crazy. And you're not wrong. But when I see those details and I say, okay, sliding across and the puck goes in between his legs, but not because his sticks is out of position, but because his pad was up, and if it was flat on the ice as he was sliding in his butterfly, he would have made the save. It's situations like that that I used to see. And that's why I used to say, I don't see why people are so high up on Monty. And in tonight's game, guess what? You're going to have a group of people that are going to say, yeah, he allowed 5 goals, but he faced 33 shots. I'm telling you, there's going to be people out there that are going to say that. And while it's probably wrong to say it, There's nothing more you can say from that, right? I mean, 33 shots on goal. It's a regular amount of shots in a hockey game, right? And to give Montembeault a little bit of credit, he looked pretty good in the shootout, right? Let's call that what it is. He did look pretty good in the shootout. But overall, I just can't trust this game anymore. I really can't. And I'd love to, but it's just not happening for me. Just like this live show isn't happening. There aren't that many people out there, are there? Why not call Fowler up? Apache Nation, they can now, after the deadline has passed, because there's no roster limit. So long as all the players that you have on your roster are less than the salary cap, you can bring players up. So yeah, they could bring Fowler up to finish the season, but then again, you're going to get back to where you were before, right? 3 goaltenders. They all have to play at a certain point, don't they? You're going to bench Montembeault? What's that going to do for his value in the summer when you try to get rid of him? There's a very fine balance to what you can do, right, when it comes to goaltenders. And I get it. You want to have the best team available to you. And right now, it seems to us, and we're probably right, that it's Dobish and Fowler. But because you don't want to diminish the value that Montembeault has on the market, you've got to be extremely careful at what you do. And at the same time, you also don't want to sit out Fowler long term, right? When you saw him not play every second night and he would play every third, that's where you saw his game dip to the point where the Canadiens decided to send him back to Laval. So it's a very difficult, delicate balance that, the Canadiens have to watch out for. I'm going to cut this one short, gang, because one, it's been a long day and it's 1 o'clock in the morning here in Montreal. And Roy's probably going to have to tee off in a couple minutes. So Roy's in Thailand. So and normally he's playing at the Lamluka Golf Club. I don't know if he'll be there today. Let's see. If Michigan are eliminated from the NCAA Frozen Four early, would you give Hage a contract so he can join the Canadiens like Hudson did? Well, ask yourself this question. Do you really want the Montreal Canadiens to burn a year of eligibility for Hage just to get him in this season? Or would you rather wait? That's the question you got to ask yourself. To me, it's very simple. I don't want to burn his eligibility, right? So what I do is, if he's willing to do it, you send him to the American Hockey League. If you can't, I have to check the rules on that, whether or not you can or you can't when the player's brought up from the NCAA. But I don't see why not. You can add him if you want. We did it with Demidov too, right? He got 2 games, and then he played in the playoffs, right? So that's always a possibility as well. I mean, I wouldn't mind it, but what does that say about your faith in Oliver Kapanen right now, who, for everything that this kid's done during his rookie season? I mean, you're going to bring in another rookie to replace a rookie? I don't know. It's a tough situation to call, but for me, it also depends on how the Canadiens finish the season. If they finish strong and they look like they're going to be, they're going to have a good road into the playoffs and they're not going to have to clinch late, then yeah, bring him in. I mean, play him till at the end of the season, keep him as a call-up, whatever the case is. But if the Canadiens back into the playoffs like they did last year until Demidov showed up, I would not, for a second, use Hage. Really, I wouldn't. I would wait. That's just my opinion personally. The team better get serious about making the playoffs. The teams trailing them are hot on their trail. If Montreal wants to make the playoffs, play Monty at the least times possible. Otherwise, it's golf season. You're not wrong in the sense that they need to be a little bit more selective about how they play their goaltenders. But there's one thing that, again, we all need to keep in mind. The Canadiens went into the West Coast trip with a 5-0-2 record before they lost against San Jose, and then now they tied now. So in their last 9 games, they're 5-1-3. Okay? That's not that bad. it just looks bad because on the West Coast we just haven't done well, and the Kings are not going to be an easy out tomorrow either. But I mean, it's tough. I mean, they are serious about making the playoffs, the way you're talking about it, Apple Tile. But I don't know. It's just the West Coast trip always makes the Canadiens look worse than they actually are, notoriously. And you're going to see when they play at home, the games are going to look completely different. Whether it's because the Canadiens have last change or whether it's because they're at home and they're not traveling, I don't know. But, you know, whatever you saw from the Canadiens going out west, you're going to see from the Western teams coming to Montreal. So it's going to be an interesting back and forth between those two anyway. Let's see here. Yeah, I know they did it for Hudson. We'll see whether or not they do it for Hage, but I don't know. I'm so against, personally, okay, and this is just my opinion. I'm so against bringing a guy up and burning his first year of eligibility for a couple of games, right? If I'm going to take a year of his contract and piss it out the window for 7 games like they did for Demidov, I'm not going to be a fan of that, right? If they think they're going to make it beyond that, or Age gets in early enough to play at least 6 or 7 games, then okay, no problem. Bring the kid in, let him play those. He'll get upwards of about, let's say, 10 to 15 games. But when you can't get a player into double-digit games in the National Hockey League and burn his 1 year of eligibility already, I mean, it's not worth it for me. That's just my opinion, and you can agree with it all you want or disagree with it all you want. The Danault line is hurting my eyes. It hurts more than my eyes. They were awful tonight. But there's one thing for sure against LA, Danault's going to be, he's going to have a hard on in that game, for lack of a better way of putting it. Anderson, Gallagher, Danault. Who sits for the sake of rotation? Rotation? Listen, if I'm sitting anybody in rotation right now, it may very well be Zach Bolduc, to be fair. I'd like to see Veleno back in the lineup because I think he helps out more defensively than anybody else, right? Plus, he gives you another option at center. Even if you play Veleno on the wing, I could care less if he's out there able to take faceoffs. Let's say you play him with Jake Evans, as an example, and Kirby Dach. That sounds like a relatively decent line, don't you think? Just my thought process on the whole thing. Anyhow, guys, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm done. Ivy Thibault, what is this 1 year eligibility? Okay, let me explain myself. Thank you for clearing that up, by the way. I probably not everybody understands it. I got to be a little bit more clear. When a player signs an entry-level contract with the Montreal Canadiens, that entry-level deal kicks in once they come up to the NHL. So with Demidov, for example, when he came over from the KHL, he signed his entry-level contract, which was 3 years, which is standard for everybody, at $975,000, I think it was, plus bonuses. Okay. If he were to go to the American Hockey League, it wouldn't apply. But now he comes up to the National Hockey League and he plays 7 games. So instead of playing 82, he plays 7 and you burn the first year of his contract, right? So you miss out on that, where you could have waited until the beginning of the season and that first year of eligibility would have been 82 games as opposed to 7, if you understand what I'm getting at, right? So that's what I mean by first year of eligibility. Anderson, very bad penalty tonight. Can't afford more brain dead actions from a veteran anymore. Listen, guys are going to happen. It's going to happen to them. It is what it is, right? It's a hockey game. They get frustrated. Will I be on after the LA game? I won't be on live, but I will be on. You're welcome, Ivy. Thanks for pointing it out. I should have been a little bit more clear when I explained it, but thank you for that. Guys, thanks for joining live. I know it's a short one tonight, but it's late. West Coast games are tough to do live. That's why I didn't want to actually do this, because it's hard to organize a live show doing a post game on your own and not having time to really, get your mind thoughts behind the subject matter of your live show. But we'll get back to it later. We'll do it on another Friday, 8 p.m. as usual, if we can, if the schedule allows us and whatever. But thanks for joining me tonight, and we'll talk tomorrow.